Hello? Can everyone hear me? I can't hear you. Have we had a long break? So, my name is Aarul, and I am the founder of Mass Virtual, and we are a company which is a startup based out of London, and we are exploring new technologies like artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality. So without a further ado, let's get right to it. The clicker is not working. No matter, we've got legs. Right. For the human eye to detect any sort of movement, there must be at least 2 frames in 1 second. So for example, you see an image of an eye, but it doesn't move, does it? Why? Because that's only 1 frame, a still image. Now let's say if there were 2 frames, the clicker is going. Let's say if there were 2 frames, in 1 frame where the eye is open and in the other where the eye is shut, then you would be able to see some sort of movement of the eye shutting and opening. That's an example of 3 frames in a second, where it's trying to indicate whether or how a circle moves from one place to the other. As we can see, it's quite flickery, it's breaking, and it's not smooth at all. I mean, at best you can see 3 circles in the top one where it just has 3 frames. If you compare that with the one which has 12 frames per second, it's still extremely flickery, it's still breaking, but you can see it moving. You can see this, it's smoother than that, but it's still very flickery. When we watch movies, and we all love movies and we all watch movies, they're either in 24 frames, 25 frames, or 30 frames in 1 second. That means there are 30 still images displayed in front of your eyes in every second. And that's a lot. But for virtual and augmented reality, that's still not enough. Why? Because they require a high frame rate of 60 frames per second. That is 60 still images flashed in front of your eyes every second. What for? To make things look real. Here's a comparison of 15 frames per second, 30 frames per second, and 60 frames per second. It may be a little hard for you to see, but if you notice that 15 frames per second is still very jittery. It flickers. Compare it with the 30 frames. A lot of you might say, I don't see any difference, which is quite true, because that's what movies are shot at. But it would require a very fine eye to notice the difference. However, if you look at 60 frames per second, that's perfectly smooth, or so it appears to us. And that's what we're getting at, to make things look real. As I mentioned about movies, when we watch a movie, we've got a screen in front of us, whether that's in the cinema or at the comfort of your living room, your bedroom. But there's a screen in front of you, and all the action related to that movie happens in front of you. Whether you look left or right, that movie is still not going to go anywhere. That's still going to stay there. But that's not what real life is. In real life, let's take an example of this presentation. The presentation is happening here. You can turn left, and there must be a guy thinking, what is this guy talking about? On the right, there must be a person like, I know this stuff, it's child's play. That's still an action happening. And that's what we need to do in virtual reality to make things look real. Because in virtual reality, an action not just takes place in front of you, it takes place in every direction. Left, right, top, bottom, everywhere. For example, here you see a woman walking, and the environment is very bland, very plain. But look at what she's actually seeing. She's seeing a mystical jungle for her. But that's completely different to what the real life is. And that's what virtual reality is. Being immersed in a completely different reality. It may not be real, that's why it's virtual reality. But yet it feels real. Being immersed into a completely different reality, and yet it feels real. Now, augmented reality is a little different. Not very, but a little. Augmented reality is when you bring those virtual objects into your world. So for example, let's take a look at this example where there's a group of people exploring the human skeleton. It basically tracks the environment and brings the skeleton there. So you've got a skeleton there. You can look from, every direction you like. But that object is in your world. Being immersed with virtual objects in the real world, with virtual objects in the real world, is what's augmented reality. Now earlier, people had to program each combination or every outcome what a person can do in such situation in either virtual reality or in augmented reality. For example, we've got a demo outside where it allows you to sit in a living room and you can interact with few objects. Let's take an example of a mug. Now, I saw a kid who was basically trying to pick up the cube, and I was like, can I drink water from this? I mean, we're getting there. Virtual reality is getting there. But think of the combinations that a person can do with it. A person can pick it up, look at it from every direction, throw it at a friend, which I would not advise, or just throw it at the couch. Or think of a Rubik's Cube. You'd like to solve it, you like to dip it in water, you like to throw it, you like to put it in your pocket. There's so many combinations with just one object. And earlier people had to program each and every outcome, but not today. Because that's what machines do for you. When the machine starts to learn from human behavior, and it automatically creates those combinations for you to help you achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve, is what artificial intelligence is. I'll give you a very brief example which is already happening today. A lot of people have Android phones, and I've got one too, and my Android phone knows what time I leave the office. So it just sends me a little message, it's time for me to leave the office, which I still don't because I keep working. And it knows it'll just show me what my usual route is. This is my usual route, but there's extremely heavy traffic on my usual way of getting home. So it automatically tells me that this is an alternative route. You could use this. And don't forget to pick up the bread, otherwise your mum's gonna go berserk. But that's what artificial intelligence is, where it perceives the environment, it learns from the behavior, and allows you to achieve the goal with ease. So that basically brings us towards the end, and I just wanted to tell, if not everyone has tried it, we'd certainly like each and every one of you to come outside and try our virtual and augmented reality experiences. We've got the HTC Vive, where we've got few robots, and people, you will have the opportunity to shoot down those robots, move, dodge, jump, lean down, basically trying to make you feel immersed, and that's about it. And with the Oculus Rift, we've got the example which I just gave, where you're in the living room and you get to interact with a lot of objects. And we've got the Google Daydream and the Samsung Gear, where you can visit a completely different city, for example, Prague, London, or Melbourne, by just sitting in that chair. And we've got Amazon Echo, which is an example of artificial intelligence, a digital assistant which basically helps you achieve whatever your goal might be. So do visit that, and thank you so much.